In the cold, ink-black night, the ground trembled as if the earth itself was gasping in fear. Picture a small hamlet nestled in a peaceful valley where life moves in a tranquil rhythm. The usually idyllic setting was now wreathed in an uncanny hush, a silence that seemed to echo with an eerie tension. The once vibrant market square was abandoned, its cobblestones glinting under the pale moonlight, bereft of its usual laughter and chatter. The villagers, normally jovial and full of life, were now gripped by a fear that seemed to hang in the air like a thick, chilling fog. There was something amiss, a sense of foreboding that was almost palpable. The hearty livestock, the village's pride, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind empty barns and stables. The usually steadfast lights that illuminated the village flickered intermittently, casting long, ominous shadows that danced menacingly on the ancient stone walls. Amongst this growing unease, we find our main character, a young villager. A skeptic by nature, he was known for his sharp wit and quick laughter, but even he couldn't ignore the unsettling changes around him. His skepticism was slowly giving way to a gnawing anxiety that he couldn't quite shake off. His dreams, once filled with grand adventures and playful fantasies, were now tainted with haunting images and jarring nightmares. As he walked through the village, the wind seemed to whisper warnings to him, the trees seemed to shiver in fear, and the moon seemed to watch him with a mournful gaze. He could feel a strange energy pulsating around him, a silent uproar that was slowly building up to a terrifying crescendo. Then, as the clock struck midnight, the silence was shattered by a bone-chilling, unearthly roar. From the bowels of the earth they emerged, their hollow eyes glowing with an unholy light. The whispering wind carried the scent of decay and the chill of the grave. One by one they clawed their way out of the earth, their spectral forms solidifying under the pallid moonlight. The once silent graveyard now echoed with the low moans of the risen, a haunting symphony that heralded the dawn of a nightmare. In the heart of the village, terror spread like wildfire. The once bustling streets now stood empty, save for the flickering shadows cast by hastily discarded lanterns. Doors were barred, windows shuttered, and prayers whispered into the cold night. The villagers, once disbelievers of the old tales, now huddled in their homes, the reality of their worst fears sinking in. Yet, in the midst of the chaos, a young villager stood frozen, his disbelief slowly transforming into a paralyzing fear. He had scoffed at the old legends, dismissing them as mere tales spun by the elderly. Now, as he stood at the edge of the village, he could see the figures in the distance, their silhouettes grotesque and twisted against the moon's cold glow. The undead, once residents of the village, now marched towards their former home. Their steps, though slow and deliberate, carried a sense of inevitability. The rustling of their tattered clothes and the hollow echo of their footfall were the only sounds that dared to break the silence of the night. Each step they took was a chilling reminder of their relentless pursuit, a pursuit not of the living, but of revenge. They were the forgotten, the ones who had been laid to rest with unfulfilled desires and unquenched anger. They were the restless, their spirits unable to find peace in the afterlife. They were the damned, forever bound to the mortal realm by their unending wrath. They were the forgotten, the restless, the damned, and they had returned for retribution. With the dawn came the desperate call to arms, a fight for survival against the relentless undead. As the sun rose, bathing the village in a deceptive warmth, the villagers found themselves in a battle they were ill-equipped to fight. Each man, woman, and even the bravest of children held in their hands whatever they could find, from pitchforks to kitchen knives, their faces etched with determination and fear. Among them was a young man, once a skeptic of the tales of the undead, now thrust into a nightmare that was all too real. His transformation from a doubter to a reluctant warrior was swift, born out of necessity rather than choice. His hands gripped the handle of his makeshift weapon, the weight of his responsibility heavier than the weapon itself. The undead, an army of relentless shadows, marched forward. Their eyes, void of life yet filled with an insatiable hunger, were a chilling sight that would haunt the dreams of the living. They were unfazed by the resistance put up by the villagers. Their grotesque forms, distorted by their transition from life to death, were a sight that struck fear into the hearts of those who dared to look. The villagers fought, their futile attempts to defend their homes becoming a dance of desperation. Their cries echoed through the air, a chilling symphony of despair and determination. Yet, for every undead that fell, another rose, their numbers seemingly endless. The young villager, his face streaked with sweat and dirt, fought with a fierceness he didn't know he possessed. His heart pounded in his chest, each beat a testament to his will to survive, to protect his home against the unnatural threat that had befallen them. But as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the chilling reality began to set in. The village was on the brink of being lost to the night, and the sun was setting fast. The battle had just begun, and the night was long. The fight for survival against the relentless undead was far from over. The village was on the brink of being lost to the night, and the sun was setting fast. As night fell, the young warrior stood alone, facing the undead army, his heart pounding in his chest. It was a sight to send shivers down the bravest spine, an ocean of the undead, a symphony of groans and rattles echoing into the dark night. He glanced around, the world silent, save for the disconcerting sound of the approaching horde. His breath hung in the air, a visible testament of the fear that knotted his stomach. He squared his shoulders, determination etching lines onto his youthful face. The tension in the air was palpable, a tangible dread that clung to the very air he breathed. Yet, he stood his ground. It was his moment, his final stand against the terrifying force that threatened to consume him, to consume them all. His gaze swept over the horde. His heart clenched at the sight of them, not for the fear they inspired, but for the pitiful beings they had become. They were once human, once alive. Now they were trapped in this grotesque parody of life, their humanity stripped away, replaced by a ravenous hunger. A horrifying truth dawned upon him. These were not monsters born of the shadows. They were victims, stolen from their lives and thrust into this nightmare. His heart ached for them, for the lives they had lost, for the torment they now endured. As his eyes roved over the sea of the undead, he met the gaze of one. The creature's eyes held an eerie familiarity, a haunting echo of a life long past. His heart skipped a beat. Impossible, he whispered into the night. Yet the truth was unmistakable. As he looked into the eyes of the undead, he saw not monsters but lost souls. And then in the heart of the night he heard a whisper, a name from the past, a name that chilled his blood. His own name. His name hung in the air, a ghostly whisper that sent a chill down his spine. The undead creature before him, the one with the familiar eyes, had spoken his name. It was a voice he recognized, a voice from his past. A voice that belonged to a man that he had once called a friend. His heart pounded in his chest, the realization hitting him like a punch. His friend, his comrade, was now one of them, one of the undead. He was torn between horror and sorrow. He reached out, his hand trembling. The undead creature mirrored his action, its bony fingers reaching out to him. Their hands met, a chilling touch that sent shivers down his spine. He looked into the creature's eyes, the eyes of his friend. There was no recognition there, no spark of the man he once knew. Yet there was something else, something that wasn't there before. A flicker of understanding. Could it be possible? Could his friend still be in there, trapped inside this monstrous form? His heart ached at the thought. He squeezed the creature's hand, a silent promise. He would find a way to save him, to save them all. But for now, he had to survive. He had to fight. He pulled away, his gaze fixed on the approaching horde. He was ready. It was time for the battle to begin. Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey. Don't forget to subscribe to Creepy Chronicles 228 for more spine-chilling tales. Tune in next time as our young warrior takes his final stand against the undead, in hope of saving his friend and himself.